Hey folks, Jonathan here. Been working on some small projects and stuff, but I want to go ahead and get back on my wrecker here. Been working on the hubs for it, or the hub adapters, and just wanted to show you where I was and what I've got, and then and we'll do some update videos as we go on it. To start with, what I started with is a 1957 International. It was actually owned by the Navy, and it was sort of a military rotator truck, and had a boom on the back, and it only had 19,000 miles on it, and I sort of know the history from start to finish on it. It was a bomb loader for the Navy, and then went to the Moore County school systems, and then it was bought by a company that done, well drilling, and they used it to pull some pipes and stuff with, and actually put an extension on the boom, and they sold it, and I'd actually put a friend of mine on it, and he bought it, and then later on I'd traded out him for it, and I'd been saving it for probably 5 or 6 years or more, wanting to build a four-wheel drive wrecker. And I've had so much trouble with mainly on Fort Bragg on the military reservation, the tank trails and stuff. It's too far out to take the skid steer loader, 2 or 3 miles back in the woods, and then the sand's bad, and it's I've got another International low pro wrecker, and I have taken and gotten it stuck quite a few times down there, and having to pull myself out, and it's just a big pain. So what really got the final straw there is I actually bent my bumper on the front of my wrecker, and chrome bumper, about a $350 bumper, and that was it. I decided that it was time to do something. So I started building this front end, rear end transfer case, and some of the frame plating stuff's off the 57. The main frame and cab is an 89 International, another U-Haul. That's usually what I end up building trucks out of. I kind of like them U-Haul trucks. Engine come out of an 88 school bus, 7.3 non-turbo. Transmission's out of another bus, about a 9091. It's a 545 Allison with which is a 4-speed, and of course, just my luck, it's one of the buses that when you pull the PTO cover, there's no gear in it, and you run into that every once in a while on them. And I always heard about them. I'd never seen one, but of course the one I've got is the one. So we may be running a hydraulic pump off the belt on this truck. We've got a lot of the stuff built. You can see I actually had to raise the engine up 4 inches and make my rear mounts, for the bell housing, and that was to clear it for the oil pan over the rear end, or the front end, excuse me. I didn't want to have, smashing it. But anybody knows these trucks knows the engines sit really low in these trucks to start with, so I didn't have to do a lot of changing. And I'll show you in just a minute the floorboard of what I've got to do there, what I had to cut out. This front end, I had been wanting one of these front ends for about 6 years. I've been looking for one. This is a IC bus front end, and they only used this on the 2002 model, or let me rephrase that, they only built them in 2002. They sold them as 2003 and 2004 models, but 2002 was the only year that they made that front end, and they only put it on buses. They didn't make a pickup truck. This is sort of a transition front end. It's got the old style headlights and fits up to the old style cow on the truck, but it's got the new style grill, and the front of the hood comes down a little bit lower than the others. And I just always wanted to build a truck with one of these on it, just because it looks different. And I think once I get the bumper built and get our wheels, our big tires and stuff on it, it'll look a lot better. But this is where we stand so far. I had to built the front cross member here, and with the front spring mounts and everything, and got it all just about done, and ended up with the radiator support, because the original small cross member, it would have fit back in, but I had to do some modifying. It was easier and better really to build a heavier one, and that sort of will work as a skid pan. And we'll do some more supporting on it here and there as we go. The front end and rear end are Eaton, and this is sort of an oddity because it's got a lock-in lock-out hubs, which most of these Eaton front ends didn't. They're actually marked as International Harvester hubs, and you can see the back. We raised the spring up 4 inches in the back. I'm not quite finished with that. You can see I use square tubing. It's bolted into the frame, but it's also bolted into the square tubing. I'm going to cap that off and do some bracing on it. We don't want anything moving. Gears are 6/16 front and rear, and it would have been easy to find 2.5 front and rear ends to put in this thing, and probably wouldn't have been easier on the wheels and, you know, finding parts for the brakes and stuff. But I used this because I had it, and, you know, 19,000 miles is what's on it, and, you know, everything seems to be in really good shape. I'm going to go through the brakes and redo them and actually update. I've done this before on some. The wheel cylinders, what I'll do is probably take them off, and then I will cap the holes in the backing plate, and then actually update it to later model wheel cylinders. You know, something that's easier to get a hold of for a, you know, for another International or maybe even a GM product, you know, 2-ton truck or something, and we'll end up just as long as you keep track of what you use, that way when you have to replace it, you'll know. But I mean, we'll update it, and of course we had to do a little changing on the steering arm here, and may need to bring it out a little bit more. I mean, that the grease fitting's kind of close to the spring there, so, but you know, that's why it's not painted or anything. We're not all finished, but just slowly moving along on it. And I've had of course the tire on the front one time. Having trouble finding good quarter fenders. You know, they're $170 a piece on eBay, and I'm not paying that for them. And these ones here was on a bus that was in a cow pasture, and the cows rubbed against it, of course, and cracked them off. But I needed something for measurement. You know, these, I put this truck back exact same wheelbase as what it was originally, and now I'm wishing that I would have actually moved it forward a little bit. And looking at my other trucks, they sit the same way. It's like the axle's back a little farther than it should be, and the actual wheel well opening, if you look, it comes down and gets a lot closer. And that's not because I've got the front end back too far, but that's the way they made them. And unfortunately, my other trucks are the same way, but I'm not putting bigger tires on them, so they don't matter too much. And I'll show you what we've got here. Got a little bit of rust repair to do on the far side over there by the door, and it seems like most of these trucks do that. But I made the shifter housing. The shifter's out of a school bus. You can see it's got transfer cases, got 2 levers, got one for high and low, one for 2 and 4-wheel drive. And I hooked up the original emergency brake that goes back to the transfer case. I like that old style. I just, you know, they always worked good, locked in good, and so I decided to keep it. I've got my transmission lines here rounded off there just so I could start and move it. That's not going to stay that way. They'll run to the cooler, and eventually, and you can see what floorboard work I had to cut out some there, and I went on and cut it out a little taller than I was going to because I got my oil pressure gauge and stuff down in there, and I was having trouble getting to it from the top, so we did a little changing. Slotted it back for that shifter. You know, all that mounts in on the frame, the shifters do, and that's kind of good. You don't have to worry about it moving so much, and you know, the linkage will stay good. But so far, I mean, I've actually started the trucking. Got a nice bucket seat in it, but started the truck and drove it up and down the driveway real quick. You know, no radiator, so I didn't want to run it much, but just shot it down the driveway and parked it. But you know, everything seems to be fine so far, and we've got it all pulled apart, all the mirrors off and stuff. That way, when we get ready to do the body work and paint it, it won't be so bad. Got a little more work to do on the cab mounts on the back. I've just got them on there, sort of a temporary setup, trying to get the cab lined up where I want it and need it. There's transfer case. I believe that's a 2-to-1 in low, and had to build the drive shaft. You know, this is a divorce transfer case is what it's called. It's it's not mounted to the transmission. It's got a separate drive shaft that runs, and I build the drive shaft, and I don't balance drive shafts. I dial indicate them in. I've never had a problem with them. And we actually put this transfer case in neutral and started the engine, put it in gear, ran it through all the way up into 4th gear, you know, at a pretty good RPM, and the truck was just as sturdy, you know, steady with no vibrations or anything like that. So I have no doubt that's going to be fine. And there's our emergency brake, and we've had it apart. I'm going to redo the linings on it. I bought all the stuff to redo brake linings and the rivet machine, rivets, all that. So I'll do a video on that. But we're gonna redo the linings, and it's not because they're bad. It's just or wore out. It's because they're sort of falling apart. And as you can see, I've got this is it's actually sort of a triple frame. I've got it doubled here, and this outside one goes top and then down the side, and then this one goes down and then cuts back in. And this was part of the original plating that was on the frame. You can see the way that they had bent it around to go around the transfer case. And you know, like I said, the truck was a triple frame truck, and I'd never seen one like it. The bed actually had slots in it, and you had a pin that you could put down through the top of the bed that went straight down, and it actually come down, and you can see these little plates. It locked the suspension out so the suspension couldn't move, and it also had locks on the front, so it actually just locked the entire suspension solid. And even though the truck had outriggers, you know, everything was still locked solid on it. And I'll show you what I've got on the hub. And that's one of the hub adapters, you know, completed and on. And you know, we've got to take these down and do all the brakes, and we'll do all new brake lines. You know, update all of it, the rubber hoses, everything. We're not going to take a chance on that. And the tires, these are 46-inch military, good years, and they're heavy, but we're just looking for something to run through sand and, you know, maybe light mud. We're not going to put this in a mud sling or anything like that. But that's about where we stand now. And you know, like I said, this should make a good truck. And I'm going to show you the bed here in a second that we're putting on this thing. The wheelbase looks really short on this truck, but it is a 84-inch from cab to center of axle, which on a wrecker means that you've got the bed and then you've got a 2-foot tunnel box. And you know, some 60-inch you just run the bed with no tunnel box. But I will show you the bed we're going to use. Okay, here's our bed we're going to be using. This is actually a Holmes 475T, which, well, it's an twin line is what the T is for, and the H, of course, is for hydraulic. But this is one of the early hydraulic Holmes beds, twin line, which is what I prefer on all my trucks, and no wheel lift. And we're not going to worry about a wheel lift on this truck. I mean, I'm not planning on towing anything down the road with it. I may put a truck sling or even a car sling on it if I need to bring something out of the woods. But when you're dealing with stuff in the woods, it's usually four-wheel drives anyway, so I like using a flatbed on anything four-wheel drive for sure. Bed's in really good shape, and I believe this is most of its original paint on this thing. And now the bed sides, you know, we're not worried about them because we're gonna change up a little bit on them and redo them. But the you know, my main concern was really the boom and the winches and stuff on it. And I wasn't going to use the subfloor or the frame, but I think I'm going to use it. It's in real good shape, and we'll work with it from there, and you know, repack the cylinders and go ahead and go through the winches. The free wheels work good on them, which is usually one of the first things to go. People mess stuff up on them and then don't fix them, and they work real good. We'll have to do some changing to where we'll be able to reach everything on the ground because this truck sits so high. You know, control valves will probably end up getting remounted, or at least the levers for the control valves. And But that's what we're planning on using on it. I'd looked for one of these beds for a long time because I sort of wanted one. I like the way that the boom sits up high, and this one I traded off a fellow in Wilmington, and that's what we're going to use. A couple more things on the truck. I've got to raise the back end 4 inches, and I'm in a big debate with myself over longer U-bolts and using 4-inch blocks, or moving the springs down 4 inches. And I think I'm going to move the springs down 4 inches because I don't like using blocks, and that's one of the reasons, the bed's not sitting on it, is because that's got to be done first. And of course it's a lot easier to do the brakes with it off and stuff, but we'll do this, and then we'll have to build either a 2-foot tunnel box in front of it, or we may extend the bed forward when we rebuild the sides on the bed. So, but anyway, this will come up soon. Starting to cool off somewhere I can stand to work a little better, and I don't mind the cold, I just don't care for the heat. Alright, we'll show you more later.